Thank you for joining us. We're here today with Will Leonard, the head of sales and customer success for brightflow AI. Will was an e-commerce store owner himself, and prior to brightflow AI, he was director of customer success for Returnly. So we're talking today a little bit about the upcoming busy season, preparing for spikes in sales. And currently we've pulled some data, and what we're seeing in the brightflow AI data from our own platforms are that online sales are really starting to already tick up on platforms like Shopify and Amazon. So we just wanted to ask Will today, Will, what are you seeing store owners being concerned about as we head into the busiest time of their year?
Thank you. So yeah, I would say store owners generally are concerned about maximizing the success of the holiday season. A lot of brands really make the bulk of their revenue in the next couple months. And so brands are going into November, December thinking about how can I be sure that my team is ready, my product is ready to ship, and that I'm executing all my marketing campaigns in advance of a time when shoppers are very primed to buy.
Great. Um, so when we think about things like discounts and really trying to sell as much as possible, what do you typically advise?
Yeah, so I think brands can often get caught up in chasing just like I want to sell as much as possible and end up discounting or spending a lot on advertising that reduces their margin. They kind of realize that maybe in January, February after the season has ended. And so what we recommend is a lot of brands is really track your spend very closely, especially in the holiday season. You want to be sure that the dollars you're putting out are really resulting in a near-term ROI. And then be thoughtful about discounts, right? Maybe you have to do some discounts to acquire new customers, but for existing customers, maybe there's other perks you can offer that will get people to purchase your product without discounting it. Because again, in the near term, you may move some product, but you may find out that you didn't have to discount to sell all that. And it's just good to track your metrics really closely to be sure you're executing at the right level.
Great. That's really important. So, here we are just days out from expecting that large spike in sales across many of our customers' platforms. So, really, what are we seeing out there in terms of our top brands, kind of how they're preparing to maximize this opportunity and how the most successful brands are the most successful this time of year?
Yeah, so I think, one thing that brands do well during holiday, or the ones that are successful, I should say, is they really prepare kind of in advance of Black Friday, right? So they're thinking now, what's the content calendar look like? What promotions am I running? What channels am I going to be focused on distributing my product on most? And where am I advertising, obviously? And that really impacts kind of all teams, marketing, product, frontline customer support. Your 3PL has to be on board so the product gets out the door efficiently. And so a lot of that just comes down to prep and being ready to execute on the plan that you set forth for the holidays. The other thing that I think brands, especially now, should be focused on is like is growing profitably as opposed to just growing kind of at all costs. And so that comes back to this idea of when to discount, really thinking about your margins and really tracking your ad spend. I think the days of maybe the last couple of holiday seasons, it was just, grow at all costs. Now I think the market has shifted to saying we want to see profitable growth and really investing smartly, even during a time when you may be discounting more than usual or trying to sell more than usual. You really want to still be thinking about those metrics you're going to look at in January, February, in terms of how your business has performed.
What are some examples of those metrics?
Gross margin. I think everyone is really focused on margin right now. Can you sell your product at a place that gives you space to hire and invest in advertising, et cetera? ROAS is the other one, right? And we want to see ROAS ideally going up, and especially, we have shoppers primed to buy, maybe actually reducing some of your spend can be an interesting tactic because there's so much noise out there that maybe you're going to get the person to come to your site without advertising to them. And then the last one I'd say that is maybe less obvious people is just think about your LTV and even during holiday, right? So you have all these shoppers that shop with you in the first 9 months of the year, 10 months a year, let's say. How do you get those people to come back and buy during the holiday season, right? That's going to increase your kind of lifetime value of your customer base, and being able to point to that metric in the long term is really valuable. If you can say, hey, people come back and shop in my store, not just one time, but 2 or 3 times a year, that really pays itself off, can really improve the LTV to CAC metric, which we think is really important.
Got it. Okay. And so, one of the things that our data is showing is that maybe spend is going down on platforms like Facebook right now. But, kind of looking back, we see that over the last couple months, ROAS seems to be going up, return on ad spend. And so, what might explain that, and how could people maybe leverage that kind of phenomenon?
Well, I think it shows that brands are being smart, right? They're not continuing to put dollars into places that aren't performing as well as they used to be. So, the return on investment on Facebook has been down, for most of the past year. And so brands are shifting dollars away from that, maybe to other advertising channels that are more cost effective, and or maybe they're advertising less and focusing more on retaining existing customers, or focusing on, kind of free marketing channels like your newsletter and, SMS. So I think that's how we interpret that data. And for brands to take advantage of that, comes down to testing and tracking, really, right? Find other channels to advertise on, don't spend a lot, see what's successful, and then invest more, and really maximize the things you can do that don't cost ad dollars, right? Again, your newsletter, building that up, email, whatever it may be, to get people to engage with spending less. I think that's what is going to result in a higher ROAS.
Wow, that's great tip. Okay, that's great. And so I guess when we talk about ROAS, and you mentioned LTV, um, that seems like something that when people are projecting, and expecting a spike in sales, projecting that they might make, tons of their annual revenue over the next few weeks. Maybe you're not super concerned with LTV. Is that something that people should be thinking about during this busy season, rather than just acquiring new customers?
I mean, I think you should always be thinking about how you're retaining customers and kind of how you can re-engage your existing customer base as much as possible. And they're going to be they are also shopping during the holiday season, looking at new products and new brands, and so there's no reason you shouldn't be focusing efforts on retaining users and getting those people back in your funnel. LTV to CAC isn't something you're necessarily going to track like on a daily basis. It's not going to change that much, but I will say, like, in the brands that we see that are successful, that's a metric that they really value. And so again, fast forward to January, February, March, you're going to be looking back at your metrics and really looking at the LTV to CAC ratio. And so spending time now and figuring out how to maximize returning customers buying during this time will pay off, even if the payoff is, when you go out to raise money or look to do something else in the new year, you have that metric that looks really solid.
Got it. Okay. What's kind of like the most urgent thing to make sure is set up right now, um, that they can actually still have time to do?
I think your marketing calendar and kind of marketing campaigns, making sure those are set up and you're equipped to execute those is really important. I would say that's the main thing. Outside of that, again, it's just equipping the team across all functions to be ready for the sales spike.
Hmm.
The other thing that maybe most brands have already done that, but I would say the other thing you can do is like look back at previous holiday seasons and really set some targets for yourself going into this one. So if you know that last year you did X revenue on this day, or you were able to sell this much over the course of the month, what's that metric you're trying to hit this month, right, or this December? And defining that and kind of orienting your team and your efforts around that metric, I think, can also be something to think about. And if you haven't had a holiday season before and you're a newer business, pick a few metrics you're trying to hit. It's always good, I think, to have a goal and to really, again, that helps kind of define the purpose of your marketing campaigns and helps you track towards something, which I think is really valuable.
Okay. So then if there's no historical data, you can kind of just think, what would an example be of, something that they could set as sort of this goal or a high level target that they're aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, I would think, a top line revenue number for Black Friday, or for a December month, or for have a certain number of people ordering over a certain dollar amount, so increasing your AOV, kind of anything that I think is revenue based that maybe has happened a few times in the company history, or that you would like to have happen. Now's a time to try to get there, because again, people have intent to buy during the next 6 to 8 weeks, and so think about, could I have $100,000 month in December? You haven't done that before. I think all that stuff is things that I would say are simple goals, but just help kind of inform your strategy going into the season.
Yeah. Strategies aren't super helpful without some goals tied to them. So that's great. Kind of what would you say, that people could still sort of prepare now for us, the busy season when it comes to returns and exchanges, given your history with Returnly?
Yeah, I think, being thoughtful about how people shop during holidays. So maybe you typically have a 2-week return window. If somebody's buying something for a holiday gift, they probably are going to not return it in 2 weeks. They're going to return it a couple weeks after, the gift receiver gets it. So stuff like allowing people to return until the end of January as opposed to just your standard return window just incentivizes people to shop with you, which is obviously the goal. And then being really clear about your policies and kind of what they are so that people have certainty that, hey, if this doesn't fit, I have an avenue to return it. And then the last thing around returns is like a returning customer is not necessarily a refund walking out the door. You can always try to convert them just the way you convert new customers coming on your site. So allowing people to make exchanges or allowing them to, shop again in store and providing those incentives to people so that again, you can just maximize that channel in the same way you want to maximize, your new customers coming to the site for the first time or your returning customers.
One of the things that gets me usually is a promo code after straight to my inbox after I make a purchase. Okay, I purchased something. Now send me a discount for my next purchase. Is that something that you would sort of consider um, a
Yeah,
tactic?
I think that's a good, to me, that's a better tactic during the holidays than generally. I sometimes think like when I buy something, I don't need to buy something again right away. But during the holidays, when you're maybe shopping for others and then also shopping for yourself incidentally, that sort of incentive makes a lot of sense. And I generally think like what you just said is very important for people to think about. Like everyone is a shopper to some degree, even if they're a brand owner. And so just think about how you behave during holiday season, what you buy, how you
Mm,
buy, and really understand your customers in the same way. Like, what have you seen historically? What do your customers do when they shop with you in May, June, July? That behavior should be consistent. You just want to see a higher velocity of it in November, December. So it's about incentivizing that as much as you can.
yeah, I agree. Just do what you would want others, what you would want in your inbox from others. Cool. So, some watch outs that I know that we've talked about in the past really have to do with like overspending on ads or over discounting. Can you tell us a little bit about watching out for that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the main ones there that I think brands can get into trouble with. Over investing in advertising that's not returning is the big one. And I think that's been a challenge as people have adjusted to kind of a new market in the last 8 to 12 months here. But the way to do that is to really track efficiently, right? Use tools that allow you to get insight into your daily ROAS and not just looking at something on a month look back. Really know what all your campaigns are and what's turned on at what time. Because that's really the way to, again, see if the dollars are being effectively utilized. So I think that's the big one. In terms of, discounts, know what your threshold is going into the season, right? It can be tempting to, just try to move as much product as you can as soon as possible. But really understanding what products you have maybe more space to discount on and really getting a view of your sell through as it's happening so that you can see, okay, these products aren't moving as fast as I expected. Maybe a deeper discount here
Mm.
is something to pursue. Whereas, oh, this is moving better. I don't have to discount this, product category or product mix, for example. So again, a lot of this just comes into tracking and having tools in place that allow you to get insights into your data and kind of in real time, essentially, a daily view of that is really important, I think.
Excellent. Great advice. Is there anything that you would recommend doing um, kind of in the middle of all this to set yourself up better to not just all of a sudden the holidays are over. Now we have to start thinking about, the upcoming year.
I think having some sort of product demand forecast tool or something that gives you insight into, what products like that uses historical data to inform the anticipated volume of products that's going to
Mm,
sell. Because what's going to happen at the end of December is some stuff will be out of stock. You'll have more of some stuff that maybe you'd expected to sell faster that didn't. And that actually impacts you throughout the entire course of the next year, depending on your supply chain and your lead times. But going into January, February, I think brands really want to think about, do I have enough product to sell into the next season, whether that's spring, summer, or, right away, whatever the kind of timing is, really having a view of what inventory you need to have on hand after holiday. And I think you get that by having some tooling in place through the holiday season to inform you of what the expected kind of volume of inventory you're going to have. And then the last thing I would say is just like, understand what your plan is in January. In the same way you're prepping for November, December, is January where you discount product for, 2 weeks and then introduce new product, like really starting again, just plot out what that looks like. Because as you said, like once you get through holiday season, it's the new year and there's kind of new expectation from shoppers and you have different challenges you're trying to address. So plan early and really have that in place so that when the calendar turns, you have a plan for how to move the product that you still have and how to get new product in the door.
So you don't think that it's a waste of time to kind of, or too much to ask to kind of like stop mid-season and look ahead to Q1 and say, okay, where are we and kind of where do we expect to be at the end of this, and how can we sort of adjust mid-season to set us
Definitely. I
up?
mean,
Okay.
the other thing to, think about is, if you're selling on multiple channels, your website, after a certain point, you're not going to be able to hit a holiday kind of shipping window, right? Unless you're really doing expedited shipping. Some places you're selling in store more, you're going to be able to
Mhm.
sell all the way up until Christmas Eve, let's say. And so I just think you always have to be looking ahead to, depending on what the channel is, what your shopper behavior looks like, you always have to be looking ahead, to be sure that you're prepared for the next kind of event or the next promotion or whatever it may be. Um, and yeah, that's easier said than done. But I think,
Mhm.
again, the brands that are successful, they are operating in the future to a certain degree.
Perfect. Um, any final thoughts around metrics?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think, tracking stuff and really being very granular in the, most important kind of sales months for a brand. I think that's, again, it's work and effort, but I think that's the stuff that pays off if you're really able to look at stuff at a granular level and get tools in place to help you. That's what we think makes brands successful and helps you maximize the opportunity that you have over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Great. Well, we'll share a link at the end of this webinar that if there's any way we can help, we do have a tool that does help with all of these metrics. Or, if you don't need a new tool and you just want to talk and make sure that you're all the way covered, please feel free to have a no pressure chat with anybody on our team at any time. We'll share the link at the end of this, and that will help anybody connect to a member of our team, or sign up for the product, just test it out for free. Thanks, Will. Really appreciate
Well,
you coming on
thank
and
you.
talking this through with us.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.